This is the Unified Development Code. I guess the first one's planning. Hello?
Wait, let me
First
get,
one
let me
should
get
be
a
planning,
copy.
right? All right. Ken, you want to do the prayer? No.
He's good at that.
He's going to do the pledge. Or you do the pledge?
I do the play.
Okay, well,
All right, I'll
you
do
do
it.
the prayer.
I will, I'll do it. I'll do it. We'll go for prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and for all of our many blessings. We give our thanks for this commission here and for all the members that we serve, all the constituents that we serve. Please be with us tonight as we seek to make good choices and do the best we can for all involved. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm glad Seeger wasn't here to see that. So.
Yeah, I saw him last night. He didn't say he wasn't coming. All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Seeger, Ress, McInnes, Truxillo, Doherty,
Here.
Horn, Gaines, Crawford, Narcisse, Troncoso, Hernandez, Accardo. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
All right.
Looks like zoning was called at 5 o'clock, beginning at 5:30, so we'll call zoning to order first.
What now?
We'll call zoning to order first. Zoning was
Okay.
at 5 o'clock.
All right. This is the special meeting for the
This is zoning.
for
Planning's at 5:30, zoning's right now.
okay for the zoning commission, and we have someone that's going to kind of lead us through some of the Unified Development Code.
Thank you, Chairman. Ross Lyon, Director of Planning and Development for St. Tammany Parish. As you know, a lot of you know, code rewrite effort started 2017. It's been ongoing since, a couple breaks here and there, a couple different consultants, but ultimately we're trying to get a unified development code to the next step. We need to develop in St. Tammany Parish, and we need to do it in a smart and resilient way. We're hoping that these updates to Unified Development Code progress St. Tammany on that path. We hope that it's easier to read for the public, easier to read for the business community. Will bring jobs and businesses here, but also protect the way of life that we have in St. Tammany Parish. So that's the ultimate goal of rewriting the UDC. The previous and current iteration has been in place since 2009, 2010, has had many updates, and which is a good thing. You know, it should be a living document. So we need to continue on that path, but we need to start from scratch, go at it anew, and again, just work to make St. Tammany Parish the best place it can be. I have the consultants here tonight to do a brief presentation to the committee, to the commission, I should say, and I'm sure we'll have discussion after that, but I'd like to turn it over to Alex Carter for a brief presentation. Thank you.
Too many things. My name is Alex Carter. I'm the president and CEO of Desireline. We're part of the team that's working on the UDC. I'm joined by Evelyn Campo, who's our deputy CEO, and Steve Villavasso, who's the president and CEO of Villavasso Associates. I would also just like to recognize the hard work that everyone in this room has done. So by no means is it consultant-led. A lot of parish staff, stakeholders, and planning commission and council members have participated in this effort, and we just want to start by saying how much we appreciate everyone's efforts to get us here today. We're going to do a quick presentation on where we are and hopefully get to a decision point with you all tonight. A little bit on the project contents. We're going to really focus, I think, for y'all, because we've done updates with this group before, but for the public who may be listening from home, we're going to just review at a high level the project in total, but then also focus on the summary of changes that have taken place since the update and the draft number 3 was posted online back in March. All right. Just note that this furthers many of y'all's goals in your comprehensive plan, and you can refer to your staff report. There's lots of them in there. This is important to the long-term trajectory. Just to kind of make sure we're also acknowledging that what a UDC is for the general public. This is a UDC, we say this term a lot, it's a unified development code. It takes all of the regulations that affect how you develop land and puts them in a logical sequence together. So it doesn't separate, zoning. It doesn't look at subdivision and building code. It kind of puts it all into one big procedural overarching narrative so that people who are using your code or interested in locating in St. Tammany Parish understand what they need to do to build and develop or move here and construct a house. The important thing about this, I think, is, y'all are actively growing. You've been growing for many decades, and your code has become outdated, right? And so a lot of this is a need to sort of update, align, streamline, and address these key elements, construction, drainage, traffic, and sustainability. The code, it's important to note, is a document. It's not a project that you turn dirt on. So there's only so much you can do with written words, but those words affect how site plans are reviewed, how projects are approved, how decision makers make decisions, and the criteria that they follow. So while it's not a project that turns dirt, it affects projects that turn dirt. Okay. So today, you can kind of see the overarching timeline here. We're about a year and a half into this project. And keep in mind, and I think this next, and we're at the public hearing stage, this is a good kind of representation of how this process has been very iterative, meaning like we've repeated sort of a review, peer review with staff, peer review with planning commission, peer review with the council, and that's produced basically 4 drafts. It's been a long time, though, since y'all have seen this draft, right? A year ago, we worked with staff and produced the draft 1, then we briefed the planning commission and the council, which resulted in draft 2, and draft 2 kind of went through stakeholder review and produced draft 3, and draft 3 was posted in March, and that was for public comments and additional stakeholder review, and so there's been a lot of eyes on this, and that's, I think, resulted in a really strong document for y'all to work from. And this kind of summarizes that process. Keeping in mind that when we talk about the UDC, we're actually talking about your code as it's currently written. So you can see here, and this is also in the appendix of the staff report, that it kind of, if you're interested in understanding how the new chapters in the UDC correlate to your existing code, just know you have this reference handy, and you can kind of see just at a glance how much more simple this reads, right? The new organization really focuses on administration, procedures. It walks through the process that you would sort of take if you were coming in and interested in developing in the parish in a way that's logical and streamlined versus sort of how you have your code now, which is a little bit disjointed. It's a little difficult to understand. I think y'all all know this very well. You all administer it every day, and the public, I think, also appreciates this because they work through these procedures and these standards on a regular basis. For the significant changes from the March version to today, it's important to note that there's not that many that have happened in administration. A lot of it has been clarifying it, but important to note that with the UDC and administration, this new chapter is pulled up front and clarifies those powers and roles. It also merges, we want to highlight for the public, it merges this body with the planning commission and the zoning commission come together into one commission upon adoption of the UDC. Okay, so that's an important change. Keeping in mind that you can still have multiple meetings to handle your caseload, but you don't have to open and close those hearings. You'll basically separate your caseload by planning and by zoning cases. Procedures, similarly, for just the public's awareness, you now have in the code, the UDC, that's proposed procedures for every process. Also sort of tweaks the administrative use permit to really reflect what it is, which is a development plan review. And just to highlight for you all, because it's been a very long time since we've talked about this particular edit, it relocates these finance and economic development districts that are not impacting development standards to Part 1, Chapter 2 of the code to special districts. And these are financial districts that are about taxing. They're really not about land development. This was an edit that we incorporated a year ago. We want to make sure we resurface it and make sure we connect all the dots as we move forward, make sure we don't drop anything. Your zoning districts, just keep in mind, these are really all about starting that consolidation process, thinking through where you have some redundancies and removing those, grouping those districts, adding these permitted use tables, clarifying the purpose and intent of these. Your subdivision processes are similarly clarified. The last version that we had with y'all that was posted back in March, I think we had a lot of debate about subdivision regulations. We'll talk a little bit in a bit. But you had your process, and y'all are very familiar with this, right? Y'all do your subdivisions all the time. So y'all's process right now, I think, is tentative, preliminary, final. In the March version, it was concept, proposed, final, final. And in our discussions with the public and with stakeholders, there was confusion about the use of proposed, final, and final. Like, it kind of threw people off. And so what you will notice in this new version, the track changes reflect a change in it being concept, final and construction plans, and as-built plans, which are really a one-to-one for what they are. So I think this was a really good improvement. Again, appreciate the public's comments and y'all's comments and stakeholders, because it does make the plan, the UDC better in the long run. You'll also see in your development standards, your sign standards are content neutral. You've got lots of updates to land clearing and landscaping requirements, more illustrations, more planting requirements, updates to the parking. We're promoting low impact development. We've got standards for permeable pavement. It's important to note that just because the standards are added to the code, this was an important clarification with a lot of stakeholders. Just because you have standards for something doesn't mean that you're requiring it. It's like if someone comes in and decides to build it and you're encouraging it, they don't just do whatever. Like, they have a minimum standard so that it can be maintained, and there's an expectation for a minimum standard for that. So we have this for low impact standards, sidewalks, and bicycle lanes. Those are all, you have standards now in your code related to those, but they're not required, right? But if they're built to a minimum standard, which is a nice improvement. With regards to your online public comment summary, this was open from March 31st to October 31st. There were 83 total comments. I think it's important to note that it comes from around 35 residents. So these are really passionate residents that have strong opinions, which we love. And they were related mostly to drainage, floodplain management, zoning and permitted approval processes, specifically short-term rentals and subdivision regulations, tree preservation, public meeting processes, code enforcement, keeping in mind that as we got these, we reviewed, tracked them, managed a comment resolution matrix alongside all the comments that were coming from the code committee stakeholder groups, and you should see those in the track changes version. There were points of debate as part of this process, right? So as much as we would love to have all the comments come in and everyone agree, right, that doesn't always happen. And so what we want to do tonight is really focus on these major themes and outcomes from those public comments, specifically with regards to the manufactured housing overlay and the rural overlay, infrastructure, the planned unit development, conditional uses, and tree preservation and land clearing. It's interesting that a lot of the comments came in about this. These were things that were also a focus of the work before it went to public comment. For manufactured homes and short-term rentals, I think the key here is, and y'all know this, y'all have talked to us about this, a lot of the comments initially came from the Planning Commission, was that, you have these you need to use these overlays to permit short-term rentals and mobile homes. And there was an opportunity to say, let's get rid of these overlays and permit these uses by right, and, be clear about when they're permitted by right and when they may be permitted by conditional use. The problem was, in the version from March, we did that, right? We implemented that recommendation. We got a lot of good feedback. And ultimately what we heard was, it wasn't clear what the impact was going to be when we permitted by right mobile homes in specific districts, because you really have to look at where those districts are, or you really have to understand where mobile homes are currently placed, where short-term rentals are currently permitted, to understand, is that the right district where these should be, permitted by right? And so we kind of pulled back and said, let's avoid unintended consequences associated with these two overlays and instead insert that into the next phase of this process in the UDC mapping piece, because you really need to see the area and the scale of what those impacts are going to be and make a more informed decision, because there was a lot of concern from both sides of the fence, right, where people wanted to see more of them, other people wanted to see less of them, and understanding the impacts to adjacent properties is going to be critical to, I think, reaching consensus around these two issues. So you will notice in your track changes version that the mobile home overlay and the rural overlay have been added back in, and it's not because we think they're perfect. It just means that this is the problem that I think needs focused attention and that mapping analysis to see what the potential solution may be. For infrastructure, I think y'all know a lot about this, and Ted, you're here, so weigh in here if you think I'm missing anything. There are lots of standards that are either contradictory or maybe unclear. It's a difficult code to navigate. It relies heavily on interpretation. This is your current code. It's your current code. It's out of date. And so what we did in the March version, the draft 3, is we added a lot of specifications, procedures, standards. I think there was some over-eagerness related to that adding, right? We kind of over-corrected a little bit on the infrastructure. And we heard a lot from stakeholders and the public, and balanced, I think, that approach, pulled out some things that were more procedural and shouldn't be codified. And so what you'll see in Chapter 900 is there are a lot of strike-throughs. But note that that doesn't mean the parish wants to not adhere to those standards. It's not necessarily needed to codify those things. Does that make sense? So there was some push and pull, and you'll see that in your version, but I think the intent behind the original version is still there, and the idea is that we just don't need that level of detail in a law, right? You don't want to be sued over, whether or not you turned in page 2 and it had the specification exactly how it needed to be. All right. For the plan unit development, this one has also been sort of a big touch point for comments. What we've seen in terms of patterns is that the PUD overlay, as it's currently written, does allow for this sort of increase in residential density, and a lot of people see this as a problem. It does not require a mix of uses. It also doesn't require sort of innovative planning techniques, which is typically what a PUD is for. The idea behind a PUD or a plan unit development is you come in and what you want to do for your development doesn't fit within an existing category in the code. And so the parish says, look, we love your ideas. We want you to do this really incredible thing. So let's give you an envelope within which you can propose that development. But that's not necessarily how it's being used, right? But that's the intent behind it. And so what you'll see in the March version is we sort of started to lay out the groundwork for correcting this. We took out the traditional neighborhood development, the TND. We strengthened the PUD, but a lot of comments came in that it wasn't strong enough, right? There needed to be more standards within the PUD. And so you'll actually see a lot of new blue text, right? Added text related to pedestrian circulation, required open space. We corrected the ratio of commercial to residential to make it more scalable. So as developments get bigger, their requirement for commercial scales up. And it's important to know that even with these additional standards, the PUD is still meant to provide that flexibility for an innovative idea, green infrastructure, interesting housing types or a mix of housing types, and all of that spelled out in the code. And this piece, I think, really benefited from public input, and you'll see that. It was just significantly updated, but not to the point where it's impossible to use. Okay. For conditional uses, they have been added to the code, and they were added in the March version, where in Chapter 200, if you're interested in seeing this, it's all in Chapter 200, the procedures for how these are approved, the criteria for approval. They were originally removed from the code in 2007. It's an important thing to kind of know the parish has kind of done a push and a pull on conditional uses, and I think we're kind of correcting from an overcorrection and pulling them out. But we're doing it in an incremental way. So we're not just pushing everything to conditional uses. We're sort of adding a conservative approach and saying they're permitted, but they're limited, and their processes for how they're permitted are spelled out, and the criteria is spelled out. The key here is, for now, the difference between the March version and this version is because we put back in the mobile home overlay and the rural overlay, you don't have those uses as conditional use permits. I want to make sure y'all are following me on this. So you're not going to have mobile homes permitted as a conditional use in this current draft. Your conditional uses are limited to these sort of offices serving more than one person at a time, like music, art, or dance, restaurants with dine-in with a lounge, like a bar in these districts, the NC2, the GC1, GC2, and the PBC districts, certain industrial uses in the I3 where you wouldn't want them to just come in and get a permit. You would want to know who was in the vicinity, if there were any negative impacts that you needed to mitigate. And then the permanent occupancy of a site by a seasonal produce stand other than seafood peddlers and Christmas trees in the MHO district. So there's really a very narrow use of this conditional use permit. And that doesn't mean that over time you can expand it, but I think we're sort of walking slowly right to this and making sure that the processes work and y'all are comfortable with the procedures before we sort of add more to it. For the tree preservation and land clearing sort of themes, just keep in mind your current code, your land clearing practices sort of have inconsistent treatment between residential subdivisions and commercial development, which allows for the clearing and removal of significant portion of the parish's tree canopy, which y'all are all very aware of. We know that those standards needed to be updated, to address invasive species, usability, terminology, graphics, and organization, and all that was done back in March. What we saw sort of in the public comment period was there was still a push and a pull between what we were calling a stormwater management buffer and what we're now calling a natural area, because what we're, I think, trying to do is conserve and preserve the natural tree canopy within the parish around residential subdivisions and also provide a drainage benefit, right, to capture that water before it flows onto neighboring properties and have negative impacts to adjacent uses. So what you'll see in the change is really balancing standards between what is reasonable, right? What is reasonable? We don't want to stop all construction. We have to find that balance. So in the March version, this was a 75-foot perimeter no-cut buffer, essentially, and it was shrunk down to 50. But keep in mind, while we shrunk that down, we also added an incentive. So there's a natural area incentive that's included in the current code, which basically says in the S1 and the S2 districts, if you add more natural area, if you protect more trees in these districts, you can get a bonus in density, which is good. And we're sort of, again, kind of like conditional uses, we're testing the water on it. We are only allowing this in the S1 and the S2. That doesn't mean that in the future you could add it to other districts, but it's a good way to sort of start, see how the process works, see how they're interpreted, work through the applications, and make our way to a balance. Okay. So ultimately, what we're trying to do with the UDC is sort of balance these construction impacts, clarify development standards, eliminate duplicate rules, simplify the permit process, align overlapping procedures, and bolster sort of tree preservation policies parish-wide. For residents and business owners, it's important to know these changes are going to influence what you can do with your property, right? So if you're interested in it, let us know. But more than that, I think it clarifies many existing allowable uses and adds standards to improve land use predictability. And that's going to be further strengthened as part of y'all's next steps when you work in your map, right? The map is going to help with that land use predictability. It's a kind of 1-2 project. And so what we're recommending tonight is to really establish the UDC. So this is a renaming and a reorganization of Part 2 of your Land Development Code. This is what it's called today. to a unified development code within Part 2, where all your traditional zoning subdivision regulations are combined with other parish regulations such as signs, design, water management. And this is really just to assist with the review of development applications and permitting requirements. The second recommendation is really not just to realign, but also update those standards. And that includes looking at your parking, your signage, low-impact development, looking at your infrastructure, and all of that is currently in your draft. And then finally, the last piece, which is kind of like a hangnail, that's the way I think about it, but we can't forget about it, is because we're relocating some districts that are in 125, we want to make sure we add this as a recommendation, keeping in mind that the special districts that are being recommended to move to Chapter 2, we're not making substantive changes to these districts. So it really is just like a grabbing of those districts out of 125 and pulling them into an existing Chapter 2 special districts article that has already districts that are financial in their mix and putting them in the right place. So we're just kind of, organizing your closet a little bit. Okay, and those are our recommendations if anyone has any questions.
Have any questions?
Question.
Okay.
So Alex, just along the lines of, I think you just addressed it, the special districts. So when I got here tonight and I sat down, I had this on the desk, and I hadn't seen it before, but this is what you were talking about.
That's correct.
So basically, what you're doing is this is already in the code in the wrong place.
That's right.
And you took it, even though it's all blue and everything.
Yeah, it's just moved.
It's everything that's there already. It's just moved.
Exactly. If there's any new text, it's really just to explain the relationship of that chapter to the things that are already there. So it's not regulatory, it's explanatory.
Okay. So nothing substantive, just words.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just words.
Okay. That had me a little worried when I got here and saw that.
I was worried about it because it was almost a year ago that we had talked about that, because it was the very beginning of the process. We were working with 100 and 200.
Okay. Now, subsequent to that, I see all the legal descriptions of all these things. Do we have a map? Because I can't read the legal description.
So we did not change any legal descriptions. And we did not map them. So
Okay.
we really just pulled them over as they're written. And I can't answer whether or not they're mapped. I think Helen may know if the special districts are mapped. Or Ross? I think, yeah, I'm sure they're mapped because they're taxing districts.
Yeah. I'm
So-
sure they're mapped someplace, but
Someplace.
I'm wondering where it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're mapped.
They're
Thank you,
mapped,
Gina.
okay. Because it says, from the beginning point, proceed here. Well, I don't know where the beginning is, so,
I admire you for trying to read through that.
Well, I'm in Lacombe, and I saw 434, so Jimmy would be
Right.
pertinent to this, and Garen, and it's like, where is this? I mean, I know where it is, but where does it start is what I was looking at, so.
That was exactly my question.
Okay, so where would we find that map? It exists now, Gina? Okay, would you please? Thank you, okay. Okay, that was it, thank you.
Commissioner Ress?
Yeah, so my understanding is we're trying to move this document forward tonight if possible. And with the thoughts of we'll be probably fine tuning it over the next 6 months. Is that correct?
Is this for me?
Yes. And yes. And I'd also like to point out, provided I'm here over the next 4 years, it's my goal to keep consultants on board and to not necessarily get into a situation where we've been over the past 13 years to this point. I'd like to keep consultants on board on a retainer, and that the UDC should be a living document. Things always pop up. There's always a need for a change to the code. And if we have professionals that are working with the commission and the council, it's going to be a much cleaner document in 13 years. It's going to need to be adopted in 10 years. With that, looked at again and updated in 10 years. But if we keep it incrementally going forward, it's not going to be as big of a project. It's not going to take us 6 years to get here. But yes, it should be a living document that we're always updating and reviewing.
So my point, my concern over that is, and conceptually, I'm good with that. But what we ran into with 2040 and the mapping that was done inside 2040, we were supposed to be updating. There were some changes that we at least wanted to look at for advanced logistics and manufacturing districts.
And we're still going to do
And we
that.
still haven't been able to touch that. So the problem being is what we have will be the law, so to speak. And if we get into legal battles where things are tied up for long periods of time, it will be the law, even though we might want to change it. So that's kind of what worries me just a little bit.
I think I'd defer legal, but I think just like 2040, any lawsuits that are coming in would come in anyway, and we just, as a parish, we just have to address them. But we just continually use the current UDC now. We just move on, and we just go as is. Because there's a 6-month implementation lag, just like we did for short-term rentals. So if it's adopted, if it's adopted by the council, no matter when it's adopted, by just good standard practice, we should have a 6-month implementation lag.
Okay. So these wouldn't take effect for another 6 months
Correct.
beyond
Yes.
winter?
And I think,
I mean,
I don't know what the time period is for a lawsuit, but I would assume would be within those 6 months.
No matter what, I don't believe we're capable of getting it all perfect, no matter what. I don't think that's possible.
Agreed.
There's too much.
Yeah. If I have people on both sides that aren't happy, I'm pretty sure I did my job
You're pretty sure
right.
somebody's not going to be happy.
Yeah,
So
I did my
somebody's
job
going to
right.
challenge things.
Not everybody's
So
happy.
The fact of a lot of this is trying to get it organized in a better way, okay? That's a big chunk of what this is about. And then getting the pieces that the people in the parish are upset about, okay? The tree cutting, the PUD stuff, the traffic, all the things that they want to see. Those are the things that they're going to be really interested in. And of course, on the other side of that is the developers, they've got a lot of skin in this game, and what the additional cost to them doing business and whatever they're concerned about too. So that's where if we just take one side, it's pretty simple, but obviously there's two sides to this, so. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gaines.
Can I tag on there? Steve Villavassa Associates. I can't resist, because you mentioned 2040, you step on the master plan, and I just say, you're right, it's not perfection, it's consistency. And there's no question that this update takes us a long way to consistency that St. Tammany Parish has never had in the past. So I'm not afraid of lawsuits. Everybody knows about that. Bring them on. I'll win them every time. And particularly with this new UDC update, where we never meet perfection, but we meet a level of consistency that is probably unparalleled in the state of Louisiana. I'll put that on the table.
John?
So I just had a procedural question. So I just got the draft of the UDC on Thursday. Obviously, I didn't take my weekend to review that 700-page document. I don't know if any of you guys did. We're going to vote on this tonight to send it up to the council. Has this been reviewed by legal already?
Well, legal, was
I've been working with the consultants and with the staff for 18 months now through this whole process.
Sure. I just didn't know if the draft document that we're sending over, if that's been verified by legal. I want to preempt the lawsuits. It's great. I'm glad you want to win them and everything. That's all good. But if we could preempt some of that, that would be great too. And so that was my question. Is there a legal review that happens before the council gets it, or does that happen afterwards, or or is that already done?
you want to address that?
I think we're fine. We've covered that.
Right. It's happened during, and it'll continue to happen, and I'm sure that we will discover things when we are implementing the UDC that we will need to tweak over time. But we believe that what we have currently in this revised UDC cleans up a lot of the issues that we think could create lawsuits for the parish, and actually puts the parish in a better position from a legal standpoint moving forward. And just to address Mr. Rush very quickly, the comprehensive plan, unlike the UDC, is not law. It's a planning document, it's administrative, but this is going to be the law of the parish, and it is important that we get it right, and that's why legal has been involved with the departments and with the consultants from the very beginning.
That answer your question, John?
Well, is there any that, just getting this 5 days ago, is there any additional time that we can get to review this? I know that.
This is the comment that I would make.
Hold on one second. So several of my commission members, I know that they participated in the UDC meetings, all that kind of stuff. I did not. So I would need to review that to just look at it for any comments that I might want to make. But I know that a lot of the commission up here also is probably going to be in transition over the next few months as well. So we're going to be validating something and sending it up to council that the next commission may not even have any idea of what's in it. Has all that been kind of taken into account, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's remember this too. The draft version was online for 6 months. What the new draft version online is now, you should be able to go through within an hour with the track changes. Even though it's 700 pages, it's highlighted, so you know exactly what change was made. It's blue and red text for minor edits, and it's underlined words for new text. So while you just got it, the review of it should be, say, an hour. It could take a little longer than that, but you see my point. It should be very easy to review side by side. Because this commission is still sitting, and because this current council has worked on this for the past 18 months, or in some instances, almost 6 years now, I believe it's imperative to ask the commission for a vote, whatever their conscience is, to get this to the next step. Because we would be starting almost from scratch, potentially with a new council or potentially with a new commission. And then we're, this 6 years ongoing, it's a year and a half with these consultants, and then we're starting all over again. And we're just continually just treading water, spending money. So I'd like to spend a little bit more money, but in a more effective way.
Okay. That answer your question, John? Okay. Commissioner McInnes.
But I'd like to thank those that have been working on this for so long, because I didn't do it, and I'm glad that there were people out there. I know many bright minds have been working on this for months and months. And although we as the commission have been kept abreast of what's going on, it was up to us to dive deep and review the version that was online. So, I've got a number of ideas I'd like to add to it after I did do quite a bit of reading last week, but because it's a living, supposedly going to be a living, breathing document, I think trying to add something at this late date would not be fair to all the people who've been, debating a lot of ideas and coming up with what we have now. And there are a number of things I really did like. I like, encouraging and incentivizing green development, more tree conservation, allowing conditional uses. We can use that on some of our cases. Encouraging the use of native trees in landscaping, I like that. And also trying to help reduce flooding. There's several elements for that. So I really appreciate that. So I'm willing to have confidence that this is an improvement on what we have now, and with the promise that we can continue to tweak it over time. I think it's important that we go ahead and move this forward, or again, so many times you have to throw it out and start all over again, and that too much work has gone into this that I would hate to see that. But I do have one question, Ross, and it's it's that there's 6-month period where we will be working to initiate it. How can we make any edits at that point?
From the Planning and Development Department, from the Department of Engineering, we can refer edits, text changes, updates directly from our office to the commission, just like the commission, as a commission member, can contact me and say, I want this to be considered by the commission. The council can refer edits to the commission.
So
And
even though we vote on it now, we can vote on it within 6 months again.
absolutely, and just remember, this has been going on for 13 years now with the current code. Just about, I don't want to say monthly, but frequently, we bring, and you have one tonight on your agenda, a text change to the UDC, or to the Land Development Code. So yes, it's been going on for 13 years now, and I hope that it goes on, for many more years. That means we're doing something right. It's just time to dial back, start from scratch, and move forward with an improvement.
And just to clarify for anyone watching, this board recommends changes, but because this is the ordinance, it's the council that ultimately adopts those changes.
Right. And last but not least, I am so glad we are no longer 2 commissions. I mean, it was always very confusing to Planning Commission, Zoning Commission, same people. That was a joke.
Great question. I don't think so.
Commissioner Crawford.
Okay, I just wanted to share a little bit of my experience on the UDC Rewrite Committee. I'm not sure if everybody on our commission here knows, but myself and Ken Ress were invited to sit on the UDC Rewrite Committee that Councilman Davis put together. And Jimmy, we had 6 councilmen, I think? Was it 5 or 6? 6 council people, and myself and Ken. Ken had to bail out early, unfortunately, and didn't get to spend the whole time with me, but I did, and spent quite a bit of time going through every line of the UDC, chapter 100 all the way through 900. We had some really good meetings monthly, if not twice a month, over the course of, I guess, the last year, 8 months or a year. Yeah, ever since it came out in March. And that's what we worked from, was the March draft. And I went through it, so I did spend my weekend going through it line by line. And it did take about 3 hours, Ross, to go through the whole thing, the red line version. And I think it's a good document. I really do. I think it's a very good document. The intent was to, like Alex said, reorganize the closet and just to streamline the document. So that's evident as soon as you pick it up and start looking at it. That's a very good move. Then from the March document on, there were a lot of committee meetings. The UDC Rewrite Committee, the Home Builders Association had some meetings. I'm not sure who else, but there were multiple meetings. And in this version that came out, this red line version that came out in November 9th, you can see all the different changes since March. And so I went through those line by line, and I was very satisfied that they picked up the comments that we had on the Rewrite Committee, and I could also pick out the comments that the home builders had, and I didn't see anything that knocked me off my chair. They had some changes on things, but nothing to me that is what I would call substantial. So my point being is I think this is a very good document. I think it's a great step forward. I echo what Nell said. I think we should move this forward. I know that everybody hasn't had a chance to read it, perhaps. It's been out there since March. It takes a certain intention to sit down and go through a spec document like this, 700 pages, and read it and take it into account and keep it in your brain. And unfortunately, I guess I'm boring enough that I like reading specifications, so it comes easy to me. But I think we have a good document. Myself, I would like to say to my fellow commission members, I would like us to see if we can move this forward, if we can approve this and move it forward to the council as a recommendation for them to adopt it. And Nell, I think to address what you said, if I have this correct, Emily, help me on this. This document basically would be frozen at version 4, and we would be recommending that the council adopt that as the new code with a 6-month implementation period, during which time housekeeping and cleanup and other things can be talked about, ideas can be brought up, and it can continue to be worked with the intention, I believe, is Ross in here? No, oh, he's in the back. With the intention, I believe, that any edits or changes that are made would come back around in a marked up version, and this commission would have the ability to make comments to the council on how we feel about those changes and markups and input to it also. Did I get that right, Emily?
Yes, so if you all make the recommendation to the council to adopt it tonight, and the council does move forward with adopting it in December, then any further amendments would have to come back to the zoning commission for review.
Okay.
If the council makes amendments at December, at their December meeting, those amendments don't necessarily have to come back to these commissions.
Okay, but after the
adoption
fact.
of the UDC, any further amendments would come back to either the planning or zoning commission, or the planning and zoning commission sitting together.
Yeah. Okay, so that process is cut in stone then? So,
Correct.
okay. So I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to belabor the point, but we do need to at least get a motion on the floor. So I would make a motion to recommend to the council to adopt this version 4 as it's written with a 6-month implementation period.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Crawford to forward this on to the council.
And just because we are still 2 separate commissions, the zoning and planning commission, this first meeting was sitting as the zoning commission, so we'll have to make a motion to amend the UDC as it pertains to any zoning regulations, vote on that. We'll adjourn this meeting, go straight to the planning commission special meeting, have another motion to recommend any items that amend planning ordinances, take a vote, and then we can adjourn and start our regular planning commission meeting.
Okay.
Okay. All right, do I have a second on Weldon's motion?
I was the next speaker, but I'm in the queue to speak, but
Pardon?
I said I'm in the queue to speak next.
Commissioner Horn
Okay.
in the queue.
Commissioner Horn.
And I kind of wish I would have gotten my question out, or my concerns out before the motion was made. I'm the newest member to the commission, kind of taking it as it goes. I was out of town this weekend, so didn't go over it. I flashed through it. It was a lot. I want to ask a question, just, I'm going to call it common sense. This is November. We have a new council coming in January. We have an old council in place right now. When we forward this to the old council to vote, who's going to be gone in January, where's the true concern about the parish's outcome in this whole plan of outgoing versus income? I'm just talking about timing. You have the old people that's going to vote on it. They're going to be gone in January, and then the new people are going to be stuck with the decision the people that left a month ago. I always ask you about damage control and stuff like that. What are the damages of us voting on this and going forward? And I think I just heard legal say that once it's done, you have to start a new amendment process to do all of this instead of allowing the new council to digest this
Yes.
and not buying the brick that the old council have laid in their lap.
Yeah. I think the concern for damage control is mitigated by that implementation lag of 6 months. And we know that so if it's adopted by this current council, I'm not going to say the old council, but I'm going to say the current council.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
kidding.
Current.
I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
No, I'm just
I
kidding.
didn't mean that.
The current council,
Should have chose my words a little better. I'm sorry.
all good. The current council, so if they were to adopt it, and I'm using just, if they are to adopt it, it would not go into effect for 6 months. And that gives the time actually to the new council to be able to review it and digest it and make sure that it's in line with their current, at the time, the new council's, values as relates to St. Tammany Parish. I think I would echo most of the commission their sentiments here today about all the work that's gone into this. I think it behooves the administration, the council, and the commission to take a vote on this, whatever your conscience is. But is it an improvement to what we currently have? Yes, it is. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect. But it is an improvement to what we have. And I think we're taking baby steps forward as we continue this process.
Specifically, in that 6 months, if the new council thinks that something, they don't like it, does it start a process over, or are they able to do something within the 6 months?
No, it would be as soon as they would see it. So just like tonight, we have a council member who is referring to the commission a change he wants to make to the code. So that is done by any council member at any time. It's done by the Department of Planning and Development or Department of Engineering at any time. By the commission, you can say, I don't like how this reads. Let me bring this to the commission and let's have a public hearing about it. So it's an ongoing, almost monthly but very frequent change to the code that takes place. This is getting us into a clean version that after 13 years, we need to kind of start from scratch a little bit.
I would just add this too. I think it's a great question. Helping towns and communities run, their administrations and their codes. For a new member of either the Planning Commission or the council, they may actually want that 6-month period to be shorter because it's going to be easier to administer the new UDC than to sort of operate within your current code. So because the UDC is sort of streamlined, it's easier to understand. When they start sort of on day one, they're going to be handed the current code, which I think they'll realize is difficult to understand and interpret and administer. At the same time, they're going to be handed the sort of UDCs, and they're going to have an effective date of 6 months. If it were me, personally, I would be like, that 6-month effective date can't come soon enough because I would only want to learn one. I would only want to administer the one that's more easily administrable. And so we have thought about these impacts to the new members. And I think they're actually going to have an easier time sort of getting inducted into this process and into sort of government management and administration through kind of reviewing the UDC and becoming familiar with that over their 6-month period.
Okay.
Public comment? We still have a couple of, we can just public comment before they're.
Okay. John, did you finish your comment? Okay, Commissioner Troncoso.
I second Commissioner Crawford's motion.
Okay, we have a second on Commissioner Crawford's motion by Commissioner Troncoso. Commissioner Crawford.
I just wanted to speak to what Commissioner Horn was saying, and I completely agree, and I certainly understand his position. He's brand new on this commission, and feel for anybody who's just walked into this whole thing, for sure. I would like to say many of us have been working with this document for a long time, and I'm talking about the old document. And just my personal feeling is that I think anyone that knows or has worked with the old document would feel like we've done them a real good service by giving them the new document, just because it's cleaner and streamlined. The changes are not that drastic between the two, I don't believe. Second to that, I'd just like to point out this is a public meeting that was advertised at 5 o'clock, and what it was put out there. And there's been a lot of people that worked on this, Home Builders Association, different committees, and so on, as well as, what was it, Ross, 35 people? 83 people. And none of them came out tonight to protest or object to moving this forward. So I just throw that out there for what it's worth. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have, and I've lost your name.
Terry Lewis Stevens. Yeah?
Yeah.
You're right. I'm not going to object. For the new people, though, and people who are not in the industry that has to use this particular document, this is not a new document at all. This is a refined document. And the reason that the refining was necessary is because people like me and developers, people, I'm an architect, so I have to utilize this particular document to be able to get anything permitted in St. Tammany Parish. And the easier you can make it, the more clear you can make it for people who want to develop in St. Tammany Parish, the better off everybody is, because then we know what the standards are, what the minimum standards are, what the incentives are, what we can do, what we can't do. It just makes it clearer for everybody else. So to Mr. Crawford's comment, lots of people worked on this, and yes, I put in a boatload of comments. Because I do this all the time, and I show up all the time, and I've experienced lots of these challenges, and there's so many better ways for us in St. Tammany to do things. And I have to agree with first of all, what Ross said, that yes, we should keep the consultants on board, because every single month, the code gets changed. It is a living document. It's supposed to be a living document, but we need them to be able to troubleshoot where we're going to have conflicts if we adopt, like tonight, if you adopt the code change, the text change, it's going to affect 10 other things that you're not thinking about, the council's not thinking about, but the consultants will already know. So they'll be able to go, hey, there's an issue here before it gets to the council. So it is invaluable that they participate. And yes, I think 6 months is too long. You should have it forwarded to the council, get it approved right away, get it implemented right away, because, yes, the other UDC, which is on Municode, anybody can go look for it. It is laborious. It is difficult to deal with, and nobody in the industry is going to want to look at this code knowing that if they don't get permitted within 6 months, new code. So it's more fair if you put it in play right away, get it approved, get it started, and then it can continue to evolve as necessary, because it is a living document. So yes, I would say by all means, get it passed. It's way overdue. So much time has taken place, and everyone had a chance to put comments in. Lord knows I did it. So I would say go ahead, do it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience that has any comments before we take a vote? I see none, so I'm going to call for a vote on the motion that's on the floor. Please vote.
The motion to adopt is written. Carries.
Okay. So that's the planning, right? Zoning. Okay. All right. Now, do we need to have some discussion on the?
Well, let's make a motion to adjourn a second, and then let's call to order the.
Okay. All right. We need to adjourn this meeting, and then we'll call the new meeting to order.
Just need a motion in a second to adjourn.
I need a motion and a second.
I'll motion.
Moved by Ken to adjourn.
Now, Mr.
I'll second.
Narcisse.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Narcisse?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. You second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Crawford?
Oh, I was going to second.
Okay.
Confused.
So
We got it.
We're adjourned.
All right.
Call this meeting to order. Special meeting.
All right. This is the special meeting on planning. Okay?
Take up.
We need to have the roll call.
Seeger. Ress. McInnes.
Here.
Truxillo. Doherty.
Here.
Horn.
Here.
Gaines.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Narcisse.
Here.
Troncoso.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Accardo. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We don't need to do that. All right, so I'll, please silence all phones, which we didn't need to do all that. So this is, the discussion on the Unified
Bless you.
Development Code as applies to planning. Commissioner Crawford.
Okay, I think everybody understands what we talked about before. I don't think anybody else new is here. So I make a motion to forward to the commission and asking them to adopt the council, I'm sorry, yeah, forward to the council and asking them to adopt the UDC version 4.
Okay.
Well, we're doing it for zoning.
Okay.
Commissioner Troncoso.
Well, I guess I'll second that also. You're 2 for 2, Weldon.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience have any comments? All right, bring it back to the commission. Please vote.
The motion to move forward to the council to adopt the UDC version 4 carries.
All right, thank you. Now we can have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Crawford to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Narcisse. Pardon?
So now we can move on to our
Okay. So you want to, you cleared? Yeah.